I'm just loving the complexity of each of these Ranger characters. They're so much deeper than the pieces of cardboard that we've had on Ninja Steel thus far. Marv... that was a... that was a... that was a cough blooper, and I am not cool with that.
It's not roasting. Jack Frost nipping at your nose. So I'm offering this simple phrase.
Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. The holidays were a little bit crazy for me, between my regular 9 to 5 ramping up for the end of our season and getting a pretty nasty cold just before Christmas. But now everything has settled back down and I can get back to work on getting Hyperforce caught up. Again. Just a couple of quick setup notes for this one. First of all, in the spirit of giving that is traditionally associated with the holidays, HyperRPG once again donated 100% of the proceeds from this stream to the Halo Foundation. And I actually just want to take an extra quick second to point out, HyperRPG is a very small little production outfit, so that's actually a bigger gesture than it might seem. Also, and something that I'm actually kind of surprised didn't happen sooner, the cast had to deal with the absence of a team member for the first time. Paul Schreier had some minor oral surgery and wasn't able to participate in this session. Now don't worry, he was back for the next one, everything's fine there. When you do a production live, sometimes things like this happen and you have to adjust to them on the fly, and it was actually pretty fun to see how they worked Jack's absence into the story. Especially at one point that I will get to later. Alrighty, with all that established, let's take a look at the 8th session of Hyperforce, Don't Krampus My Style. So the session starts with the time ship still chilling in the Hyperstream. In the past, I and the show, to be honest, have called that the Hyperforce, but lately they've been calling it the Hyperstream, and they started off this session by calling it the Hyperstream, so hey, I should keep up with the common terminology, right? They've been sitting back and kind of recovering from everything that happened in Corinth for a little bit, so all of their health and energy have been reset. However, things are a little bit awkward on ship. Sure, Eddie and Vesper had talked out their feelings a little bit, but a lot of really strange things have happened since then, and they haven't really been talking to each other, and it's been kind of quiet and awkward in that situation. This is something that Marv and Chloe have picked up on, and they discuss it. Marv also can't believe that Vesper kept the fact that she's an android from the rest of them. He says that he would never keep a big dark secret, like, you know, for example, being from another planet or something from the rest of his team. Chloe actually says that, hey, everybody has secrets, and that's not something she'd be too floored to learn. Malika says Eddie is hungry, so Eddie is hungry. He walks into the kitchen and, realizing that the others are talking about him, says things have been pretty intense for him lately. He scored a date with his crush, and then his crush tried to crush him. He was also floored by Vesper's revelation and is kind of just frustrated by the fact that everybody always seems to have secrets. Except for Marv, not that guy. Oh, those two have been best friends for a while. He knows everything there is to know about Marv. Or almost everything. Vesper has finally gotten to work on fixing Alpha 55. As a matter of fact, he seems to be completely functional, but for some reason just won't reactivate. Vesper decides to walk over to the kitchen to clear her mind, and hearing the team talking about her, walks in her rather blunt style. The team has a cards-on-the-table conversation. Marv asks why she didn't tell the rest of the team that she is a cyborg or an android or a robot. The terminology switches around a lot, to be perfectly honest with you. Whatever she is, Vesper says she didn't know. She has childhood memories. This is a lot like Mac from Operation Overdrive. She has memories of her childhood. She remembers being human. Chloe says that she completely understands that Vesper is still processing things. Vesper points out that this is an extremely poor choice of words, if you think about it. Embarrassed, Chloe says, you know what? We'll all reveal a secret so the team's back on equal footing. And she reveals to the rest of the team that she's not human. Marv is absolutely overjoyed to hear this and glad to finally be able to reveal that he's not human either. Except that Chloe was kidding. She was saying that she's a unicorn inside her heart, but her body is actually completely human, so whoops. Revealed regardless, Marv tells the rest of the team his story. He is from the planet Cayenne, like the pepper, but spelled differently. And being an alien, actually idolized Trip, the green Time Force Ranger who's from the planet Zybria. He tells the team about how his childhood was kind of rough, especially immigrating to Earth, and so he decided to not let people know he was an alien, so that wasn't always the first thing that always came up about him. So, poor Eddie, huh? His crush is an android, his best friend is an alien, nobody was telling him anything, and he's just kind of further floored. He kind of wants to be alone, wants to grab a burrito and just go back to his room, but Marv asks if he can come along, and I mean, hey, they are still best friends, so sure. Meanwhile, Vesper and Chloe decide to explore Vesper's body. What? Get your minds out of the gutter, I'm talking about her capabilities as an android. They first think about cutting her open and seeing what's inside, but then Malika reminds them that Vesper has felt pain before, so that's probably not a good idea. Instead, they just decide to see how many burritos she's capable of eating while they work on Alpha 55. Back with the guys, Marv starts asking Eddie questions about his past, but the Blue Ranger is deflecting like crazy. In fact, at one point he literally rolled and succeeded to deflect Marv's questions about his family. The two of them trade off questions about their past and very short, non-descriptive, deflective answers. Finally, when Eddie asks Marv about growing up on Cayenne, he manages to get a bit of a story out of him. There's apparently a legend on the planet Cayenne of a red lion that will one day return and save them from a great evil. How interesting that Marv, who is from Cayenne, just so happens to pilot a red lion Hyperzord. Marv wonders how Eddie can say that he doesn't have many friends when he seems like such a cool guy. Eddie says that, he's never been very charismatic like Marv, and he's never even really had a girlfriend, to be honest. Marv admits that he's also never had a girlfriend. Malika steps in here and says that this leads the two of them to start thinking about 3016. Maybe they start talking about pretty girls back there. And, to get all reminiscent and start talking about the things they miss back home. And apparently that was going to be such an interesting topic of conversation that she immediately shifts the focus over to the girls. Vesper admits that she finds it a little bit odd to be working on a robot when she basically is a robot. Chloe says, this really isn't that big a deal. It's just kind of finding something out about yourself that you didn't know, like that you're double jointed or something. Vesper says that when all of this is over with the Hyperforce Rangers, she wants to take Chloe with her and go on a journey to find her parents and find out from them why she's an android, a cyborg, when she remembers being human. And it's just secrets all around, as Chloe has a real secret and one that she's ready to reveal to Vesper. When they go searching for Vesper's parents, they can go looking for Chloe's parents as well, because they disappeared when she was very young and she hasn't seen them in many years. But then Chloe's shields go right back up as she starts wondering what Vesper can do as an android. They find out that Vesper can create holographic projections, such as a unicorn horn and a massive burrito. They still can't get Alpha to work, so feeling a robotic bond with him, Vesper hugs him. Chloe asks if she wants to make Alpha her boyfriend or something, and things take a pretty major left turn here. Vesper admits that she doesn't feel like she's ready to have a boyfriend after everything that's happened, but she can't find a way to tell Eddie. She wants Chloe to give him a note. Chloe says that this really isn't fair to Eddie and really not treating him well, and Alpha starts twitching and reacting. The girls kind of get the mistaken idea that it's talking badly about Eddie that is making Alpha work again. So Vesper screams, "Eddie sucks!" loud enough for the guys to actually hear. They come to see what the heck is going on, though Alpha is still not fully reactivating. Vesper connects into his software and sees that she didn't actually completely do the job. There were 3 switches that still needed to be flipped. She flips those switches and Alpha reactivates. And I did say they kind of got the mistaken impression about talking bad about Eddie and Alpha, though it was kind of closer than you might think. He was trying to tell the girls off for treating a fellow Ranger badly. The guys get to the kitchen and Eddie asks what exactly is going on, but Alpha interrupts with a slightly more important message. The Rangers are being teleported away. Everybody but Jack materializes somewhere that's very cold and snowy, though to be honest, that could have been my front yard yesterday morning. They try to contact Alpha, but they can't get through. However, their morphers do kick in with a little automatic mini healing charge that warms up their bodies. They look around and see a sign for the North Pole. They then hear footsteps crunching in the snow and see a little tiny elf come running up to them. Named Squeezy Sparkletoes and showcasing a very fancy pedicure, the elf greets them as the Power Rangers and says they need to come along. Eddie starts explaining to the Rangers that before the franchise wars of 2499, there was a holiday called Christmas, where a large man in red who lived at the North Pole, named Santa Claus, would deliver presents to all the good children. Marv is more concerned with how Squeezy knows that they're Power Rangers, but Squeezy says they just know and call a tiny little sleigh for them to ride in. The Rangers keep firing questions at Squeezy, but she just says that everything will be explained once they get inside. They arrive at a very large and ornate Christmas-looking palace, and as the Rangers see all of the holiday decor, they remember that they understand this a little bit. You see, as it turns out, Jen Scott's brought the tradition of Christmas back with her to the year 3000 and reintroduced it to society. So it is something that they're somewhat familiar with. However, considering the fact that they've only been celebrating it about 16 or 17 years, and the fact that it would take some time to reassimilate into society, it's still kind of a new concept. Squeezy leads them into this amazing, ornate, Christmas-themed palace, a tiny army of amazed elves staring up at them as they enter. The Rangers look around and see nice-looking wooden furnishings, warm, colorful decor, the smell of cookies wafting through the entire place, poinsettias everywhere, red and green, and it's just a really amazing-looking place. They also see long series of workbenches lining the palace. A lot of the elves, they notice as they start climbing up a spiral staircase, are working on these kind of gray rectangular boxes with a lot of electrical wires that also have little smaller gray cartridges that seem to go inside. Yes, heroes, it turns out the Hyperforce Rangers are visiting Santa in the year 1985. Squeezy keeps leading them on this grand tour, showing them a little elf movie theater, an area for testing and QA, and even little elf dormitories where they see little tiny elf families, nannies taking care of kids while the parents are at work, etc. Vesper suddenly asks Eddie if he wants his own little elf family one day. I mean, not a little elf family, I just mean, if you've ever thought, you know what, let's move on. They approach a large wooden door with a visual parable carved into it, a character making toys, loading them into a sleigh, and then delivering them to children all around the world. Marv realizes that the Rangers and Santa Claus have a very generally similar goal, spreading goodness around the world. The elf knocks on the door and Santa calls them in. And I guess we could go ahead and consider this a guest episode, because as that happened, Santa himself took a seat at the Hyperforce table, becoming an active player. Santa rolls an extra D6 through each one of his forms. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, aren't I? As Vesper jumps on Santa's lap and starts spouting off a list of technological presents she wants, Eddie asks what exactly is going on here. Santa says that he has brought the Hyperforce Rangers here because he needs their help. So, where's Jack? Santa says that Jack has his own mission to attend to while this is going on. So what exactly is it that Santa needs the Hyperforce Rangers to help him with? None other than Krampus. For those who might be unaware, Krampus is basically anti-Santa. Santa rewards well-behaved children. Krampus, who's usually depicted as kind of a half-goat demon monster creature, punishes the naughty kids. Santa says that Krampus has been causing a real ruckus around the North Pole lately. Vesper starts negotiating with Santa. What's our help to you, huh? You maybe move a couple names over from the naughty list to the nice list and work with me here? Santa's not really interested in playing that game, since Krampus is so evil. Marv asks if Krampus is more evil than even the Alliance leader, and Santa refuses to answer that. Vesper says that if Santa has brought them all the way back to the year 1985, which I think is the first time they established what year it was, even though Vesper already seemed to know what year it was, that they are ready to help. Squeezy is scared about all this, but Eddie encourages her. Squeezy wants to keep Eddie around as an official elf, but Santa says that the Hyperforce Rangers have their own destiny that they're going to have to attend to. He also says that it is extremely important that the Rangers believe in the power of the Christmas spirit and believe in themselves. The stronger their belief is, the weaker Krampus will be. Vesper is the first to express doubt in herself, asking how she can possibly believe in herself when she doesn't even really know what she is. But Santa reminds her that she believed in herself enough to defeat the Venjix virus, and she is encouraged by this. Santa tells the Rangers that they have a little bit of time until nightfall, which is when Krampus usually starts causing trouble, so the elves bring out pajamas for them and every type of cookie you can possibly imagine. Marv, who isn't really one for sweets, asks if they have any beef jerky around. The closest the elves are able to come is a cookie that's shaped like a reindeer. Vesper grabs this cookie and eats it, feeling like she has to protect Marv for some reason. But when Marv protests, Vesper regurgitates the cookie and insists that he eat it instead. Christmas! Chloe snatches away the giant platter of cookies and starts handing them out to everybody herself. Aww. Vesper starts singing an improvised Christmas carol, and all I can really say about this is you really need to make sure to watch at least this session so you can see that in particular for yourself. Squeezy brings out hot chocolate, and Santa just transforms, morphs into his PJs. The guys, however, are going to have to change the old-fashioned way, and they're led to a very tiny little dressing room. As Eddie changes, Marv asks if he's okay with everything that's been going on lately. Eddie reveals that he's really not, kind of freaking out and ending up saying that he just doesn't want to talk about this right now. Santa suddenly pops up and pulls Marv aside for their own little heart-to-heart. He tells Marv that he's got to start believing in himself. Marv says he does believe in himself. He's a person. There's a person named Marv that exists. He believes in this person. Santa says that Marv is lying to himself, and he needs to let all of this tension and worry go and just believe that he's going to do the right thing. Oh, and by the way, he also needs to talk to Jack about their issues. Marv whips around saying that Jack sold him out after a very personal secret was revealed. Santa turns Marv to a mirror and tells him to say that again to that man standing in the mirror. Marv isn't able to bring himself to do it, and Santa points out that both Marv and Jack are good men and probably did what they thought was right at the time. Since Santa seems to know just about everything, Marv asks him where his brother is. Santa very suddenly changes the subject, helping Eddie to squeeze out of the dressing room. The girls try to just morph into their PJs like Santa did, but nothing happens, so Squeezy leads them over to the women's dressing room, which is incredibly large and ornate and luxurious. By the way, Squeezy designed it herself. Vesper instructs Squeezy to go get the blue one and bring him there. Squeezy says Vesper should really just go and talk to him herself, but still agrees to go and do so. Chloe says that they should take this opportunity to apologize for the Eddie bashing that ended up waking Alpha. Vesper says they're going to. Then she's going to trap Eddie in a room, and the two of them are not going to leave until they talk out their feelings. Nearby, sensing that this is about to happen, Santa grabs Eddie and reminds him that his friends all love him very much, before suddenly taking off. Eddie arrives and the girls apologize. Chloe actually starts lavishing Eddie with praise. He's super smart, he has a big heart, he's always incredibly positive, and he really exemplifies the Christmas spirit. Eddie thanks her and says, all that stuff from before is water under the bridge. Meanwhile, Santa pulls Marv aside again and tells him that he can't tell him anything about his brother. That's something that Marv has to learn on his own. Marv says that chasing after his brother all this time is making him sad and angry, especially since this mess is all his fault. Santa reminds Marv that he's in charge of his destiny. And in the background, pieces of coal start falling into the chimney. Marv admits to Santa that he doesn't know the best way to be a Power Ranger. He doesn't really know how to be a leader. He usually just does the first thing that comes to mind. He doesn't know anything about leading. Santa asks Marv what he thinks is the most important thing about the Red Ranger, about what the Red Ranger does. Marv says that the color really shouldn't matter. What's most important is that the Rangers act as a team. Santa says that is the sign of a great leader. Santa senses that Chloe is interested in investigating this coal that's suddenly falling into the fireplace, so he calls her downstairs. But as she arrives, he gives her kind of the side eye, and she admits that she took a few of the NES games and gives them back to Santa. But this does not spare her from having her soul bored into as well, as Santa says that she needs to open up to the rest of her team. Does she really want them to just think that she's this goofy thief? Chloe says that she doesn't want to let the rest of the team get close to her. That goofiness is a shield that she uses to protect herself. Finally, having Eddie alone, Vesper shoves him into a nearby room and breaks the door handle, trapping the two of them inside. It's time for them to talk. Vesper apologizes for being so distant with Eddie, saying that she's just not normal. Eddie already entirely understands the situation. Vesper needs to get a grip on who she is before she'd ever be ready for something with someone else. If time is what Vesper needs, Eddie says she can take all the time that she does need. Vesper wants to use her future-reading hologram device to see what would happen if she kissed Eddie. However, Malika reminds her that she turned that into a communications device, so it no longer exists. Not knowing what would happen, Vesper decides not to take the chance, instead giving Eddie a kiss on the cheek. For now, they are Ranger buds forever. Suddenly, that coal that's been dropping into the fireplace starts to form into humanoid shapes, and the Rangers prepare for battle. They tell Santa to get ready to make his deliveries, and they are going to handle this. Suddenly, a dark figure drops into the fireplace, and all the fires and lights in the workshop go out. Santa snaps his fingers, and everything relights, revealing the dark red goat monster figure of Krampus. As his coal grunts, which are called naughties, run into the workshop, Krampus tries to tempt the Rangers over to the naughty side. They refuse, of course, and they morph. Krampus forms some more naughties, and it's time for battle. Now, explaining initiative with these two, shall we say, special guests, Santa always goes first, having a Santa sense that prevents him from being ambushed, and accordingly, Krampus always goes second. Though it turns out Santa's action was to turn the lights back on, and Krampus's action was to form more naughties, so it's the Rangers' turn anyway. Eddie goes first and asks Santa if he's got anything with wheels on it. Santa tosses Eddie a Hot Wheels set, and he goes all home alone on the naughties, rolling them out and tripping up 4 of them. Krampus tells the naughties to remember their mission, so they run into Santa's office. Before the Rangers realize what's going on, they all take off and leave. Then Santa realizes what's happened. His naughty and nice list is gone. Marv tries to put out the giant fire in the fireplace to give chase or see if it's there or I don't really know why, but it's a magical fire, so he can't. Let's take a little break and think about that. The Rangers tell Santa that he has got to update his technology. A paper list? Come on, baby, put that thing in the cloud. Restrict access with a login, restrict access to certain devices if anything gets stolen. Come on. Besides being a bit of a technophobe, Santa points out that this is 1985. Stuff like the cloud doesn't exist yet. But the Hyperforce Rangers say, don't worry, we can hook you up, Santa. So I guess with some kind of time travel data technology that would access the cloud in the future or something? Hey, wouldn't that be a great idea? Data storage that could communicate through time? Listen, folks, we have just set up some very secure servers with lots of storage space and a nice, quiet, secure location in the year 1437. $5.99 a month. Anyway, the list being gone is kind of more the immediate concern. You see, the whole reason that Santa keeps a naughty and nice list is to ensure that just enough toys are made for all of the nice kids. So you can't just solve this problem by giving toys to all the children because there aren't enough toys. Only enough toys were made for the nice kids. And it's Christmas night, so there's not enough time to just make enough toys for everyone. The Rangers are ready to go get that list back, but Santa says this is personal now and asks Squeezy to go get the armor. Squeezy is thrilled that Santa's finally ready to use the armor, but says she doesn't need to go get it, it's just a simple transformation sequence. So Santa morphs into his Battleizer, and no, I am not kidding. Same suit as before, but now armored and powerful, and featuring a jetpack. Santa tells the Rangers to follow behind him in the sleigh and tabs Eddie to drive the sleigh. He names off all the famous reindeer, Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen. Vesper says he forgot one, perhaps the most famous reindeer of all. But Santa says, no, Vesper, sorry. Rudolph is just a fairy tale. Santa goes to take off, which is an action that he has to roll for. He rolls a 3 on 3 dice. 3 nat 1s. So basically Santa takes off at a 45-degree angle, does a couple loopy circles in the air, and immediately starts falling from the sky. Eddie maneuvers the sleigh over to catch Santa, who decides, maybe it's better to just ride in the sleigh with them. They track the list, which is descending downward into the earth. You see, Santa lives at literally the top of the world, so Krampus lives underneath the world. They park near a cave opening where the list seems to be. Santa wants to go in guns blazing, but the Rangers decide that they should stop and think things over first. They deduce that Krampus probably doesn't want to destroy the list. If he did, he would have just done that when he was at the workshop. Instead, he wants the list of naughty children so he can use them to create more naughties and make himself an army. The Rangers say that they should do a little bit of recon, sending their stealthiest, Chloe, along with the light-footed Squeezy, in to find out what's going on. Santa uses a little Christmas magic to make them very much like him, nearly invisible and incredibly quiet. And, by the way, Merry Christmas, Chloe. This is a permanent +1 bonus to your stealth. Squeezy takes off running for the cave in excitement, so Santa uses a little extra holiday magic to transform her into a huge, giant, plushy, and incredibly quiet teddy bear. The two of them sneak down some stairs into a workshop that seems very similar to Santa's, but dusty, cobwebbed, dark, and forlorn, with a coating of coal powder on everything. In the corner, 3 of the naughties are working on something. The 2 of them sneak up on the naughties as a team, which is actually the first time I can think of where Malika has participated in a team attack as an NPC. And the naughties do not notice them at all. The naughties are working on toys, taking inspiration from Sid from Toy Story. Barbie doll heads slapped onto dog bodies, strange spider robots with baby doll faces, just really creepy, weird stuff. They quietly relay this information back to the Rangers and a very disturbed and angry Santa Claus. And then Squeezy sees Krampus walk into the workshop and inspect the toys. Chloe decides to create a distraction, firing some of her arrows into the corner and creating a giant coal cloud. Chloe ultra sneaks past Krampus, something I found a little bit unnecessary because sneaking is not an attack that causes damage, so that extra damage roll on each of those ultras would be wasted, though I suppose she was just going for the extra roll, the extra d6 on the attack, instead of just a +1 bonus, or +2 in this case I guess it would be. She succeeds, of course, with that much power, and sees the list is tucked into Krampus's back pocket. For his part, Krampus finds her arrows and declares, "The Rangers are here!" Krampus goes running upstairs to confront the other Rangers, leaving Chloe and Squeezy with the naughties. They decide to start throwing a bunch of holiday cheer at him, figuring inversely that this would hurt him. Marv tries to say that he's using his charisma bonus to do so. Malika doesn't buy it. So Eddie says that they're all joining hands to do so and using his teamwork bonus instead. It still doesn't really accomplish anything, so Santa hops back into the sleigh, interfaces with it like the Magna Defender and the Toro Zord, and forms into a giant sleigh Zord. Krampus says that two can play that game. He pulls out, and I'm sorry for those of you with sensitive stomachs, he pulls out a glass of sour curdled milk and a stale cookie sandwich and eats them. Ugh. And this is his incredibly disgusting way of making himself grow. The three Rangers summon their Hyperzords, but they realize that they're not going to have Megazord power this time around. And this is the point, heroes, that I was referencing, talking about Jack not being there, that I like how they handled this so well. Recent seasons of the Power Rangers TV show have really discarded the idea that each Ranger is assigned to a particular Zord and is the only Ranger that can operate that particular Zord. Each Ranger has a respective Zord, obviously, but the Rangers can summon each other's Zords, they can summon all of the Zords, etc. I remember a late episode of Ninja Steel where Brody went out alone with the Lion Fire Zord, and then the other Rangers immediately followed him in the Ninja Steel Megazord, having summoned Brody's Robo Red Zord because. So it's just so refreshing seeing a Power Rangers series having a set of rules about the Zords and sticking to them for once. The Hyper Ram Zord is Jack's Zord. If Jack is not there, they can't use it. And if they can't use it, they can't form the Hyperforce Megazord. That is just the way it is. It's so refreshing to see them actually make themselves work around that, instead of just dropping in a line like, Alpha detected that the Hyperzords were launching, so he launched the Ramzord along with them because he knew they might need Megazord power. Moving right along, I can't really let myself rant about Ninja Steel too much. It kind of gets my heart rate up a little too high. Santa tries to sprinkle the Hyperforce Zords with some magical attack power raising dust and rolls 4 nat 1s on 4 dice. Santa's dice were being naughty today. Eddie demands the list back from Krampus, and when Krampus refuses, he coils his Serpent Zord up around the monster and uses targeted strikes to try and find the list. He doesn't roll well enough to do any actual damage or grab the list, but he does find the list, tucked down deeper into the monster's robes. Vesper uses an Ultra 3-headed shred to grab Krampus's arm and shred him up for some damage. Marv wants to jump in and just grab the list, but Santa says that he needs to stop acting on impulse, doing the first thing that comes to mind, and acting alone. He needs to remember what he himself said. It's about acting as a team. So instead, he decides to work with Eddie, distracting Krampus from the front so Eddie can grab the list from the back. Malika took this chance to announce another slight change to the game. Remember, this thing is being adjusted on the fly, kind of play-tested live for everybody, that will make teamwork attacks easier to pull off. And with the added foresight of this video being late and another session having aired, I believe it's also involved with a different change where now instead of rolling against the Rangers in certain situations, Malika instead announces a certain difficulty level that the Rangers will have to overroll in order to succeed. For example, that's going to be level 3 difficulty. You need to roll higher than a 3. 3 rolls again. The Megazord fires its flamethrower and also claws at Krampus, distracting him by doing 19 damage to him. Eddie's Serpent Zord attacks from behind, missing its actual attack, but managing to grab that list. By the way, the list grew with Krampus, which is why the Zords are able to grab it. It's not a little tiny paper thing there. Santa's Sleigh Zord starts blasting Jingle Bells, and by the way, did you know that the second verse of Jingle Bells talks about a sleigh crashing into a snowbank? Look it up. I am not kidding. And down with Chloe, the naughties scream in pain and dissolve. Chloe, getting the second Christmas present of getting to avoid a solo fight with the naughties, grabs Squeezy and runs out of the cave, teleporting together up to her Phoenix Zord. Santa flies his Zord at Krampus, firing explosive candy cane missiles. I'm guessing that Santa was considered to be in Megazord mode at this point, as he was rolling 6 dice. Good news, he did not roll a 6. Bad news, he rolled a 15. On 6 dice. That's 2.5 per die. So yeah, Krampus caught the candy cane missiles, crunched them up, and blew the dust back at Santa. Chloe then grabs the list from Eddie and flies high up into the sky out of Krampus's reach. Funny enough, I'm not sure if this is something they've been able to accomplish if they had the Hyperforce Megazord. We haven't established whether or not the Hyperforce Megazord can fly. Yes, I do know it has the Phoenix wings, but we haven't seen it fly yet, so we don't know. Eddie's Serpent Zord coils around Krampus's feet, while Marv has his Lion Zord jump on Krampus, knocking him down. Santa says Krampus needs just one more dose of holiday cheer to be taken out. So Vesper starts singing her Christmas songs again into the microphone of her Cerberus Zord's mace tail as it slams down into Krampus's face. I actually realized just now while filming this, I didn't even realize it when I was writing my script, but Malika kind of messed up here. And when I point these things out, it's not to be critical of her or the show in any major way. The show airs live. There's a lot of rules to remember. RPGs can be kind of complicated. These things happen. It is just something that's worth pointing out. In this case, Krampus survived this attack, and Malika said that since Krampus had been left to the end of the round, he was going to get 2 turns. However, as I said earlier, Malika had specifically pointed out earlier that Krampus always goes second. His turn should have followed Santa's turn automatically. Anyway, Santa tells Krampus that this is between them and doesn't need to involve the Rangers. And even though the Rangers have been beating on his head and face for a few minutes, he agrees to this. Well, that's a rivalry for you, I guess. Krampus throws a bunch of coal bombs at Santa, which actually knock him out of Zord form and back down into Battleizer form. However, he still manages to stagger over, leap up, and shove a big shiny ornament bomb into Krampus's giant mouth and uppercut it shut. The Rangers can actually see the shining ornament bomb travel down Krampus's insides and then explode. Santa finally rolls something decent, getting a 20 on 4 dice, so Krampus shrinks down and takes off into the night. The list also shrinks down, the Rangers return it to Santa, and they have won the night. Santa has one more favor to ask of the Hyperforce Rangers. It's now late into Christmas night, so maybe they could use their Zords to help him deliver the presents this year? They, of course, eagerly agree, and back at the palace, the elves have the presents divided up for each of them. Santa tells them that their hearts will guide them into what presents need to be delivered where. So remember, if you got a Nintendo Entertainment System for Christmas in 1985, it may just have been delivered by a Hyperforce Ranger. Keep that in mind. The Rangers heap a lot of praise on Squeezy, telling Santa what a huge help she was, and Santa agrees, saying that she's getting a huge Christmas present this year. Marv tries to get some scans of Santa's Battleizer, but Santa will not allow this, saying that the Rangers have to come into their own technology at their own time. However, he will allow the Hyperforce Rangers to upgrade the technology of his workshop, so maybe there's just a little bit of hypocrisy at work here. Eddie pulls Santa aside and thanks him one more time for all the excellent heart-to-heart advice, and Santa reminds Eddie once more that his friends all love him dearly, but that they're also going to desperately need him in the dark times that are to come. After they deliver the presents, Santa has them back inside for one more round of milk and cookies, which they establish that Santa and the elves actually entirely subsist off of, somehow. Once they finish, Santa thanks them one more time and says now their ride is here. They step outside and see their time ship, with Jack standing at the bay door. This was obviously a great session, but there's a lot to unpack here. This was surprisingly heavy for a Christmas special. I hate to keep using the term refreshing, but I mean after Ninja Steel, Hyperforce is just refreshing in general. In this case, it was very refreshing when the Power Rangers TV show has been using holidays as an excuse for meaningless clip shows for a while now, to see Hyperforce not just do an original Christmas story, but one that featured so much heavy character development. Every one of the Rangers got serious heavy character development, and Santa acted as this kind of all-knowing muse that had that perfect mixture of tough love where he very gently told them exactly what they needed to know and then gave them a kick in the butt so they would act on it. But then we got a fun and fantastic action arc where Santa became a freaking Power Ranger and even turned into a Zord. Krampus is kind of the perfect Christmas villain, even if he's more mainstream known these days for a horror movie that's not exactly appropriate for children. He's just the antithesis of Santa, and Malika gave an excellent performance as him. I'm just loving the complexity of these Ranger characters so far. They're so much deeper than the pieces of cardboard we've gotten on Ninja Steel thus far. Marv not only has his deep, dark secret, not only does the team now know that he's not human, but now there's this situation with his brother being missing and some kind of mess that's apparently all his fault. Vesper really didn't know that she was an android. Chloe basically grew up an orphan. Eddie is super deflective. Is deflective a word? About questions about his past and his family, and is pretty much Facebook It's Complicated with Vesper at this point. I mean, the closest I can remember us getting to that on Ninja Steel is that Calvin crashed a go-kart when he was a kid and scared to drive. And Preston had a dead mom, so I guess there's that. Does Santa count as a guest star? I don't want to say who Santa actually was. It's not like it's any kind of big spoiler or anything. I just don't want to ruin the magic, so to speak. You're free to discuss it in the comments if you want to. But if Santa does count as a guest, then that will make this the first guest session to get a perfect score. Yep, that's right. Don't Krampus My Style gets a 5 out of 5. Well, that's going to wrap up another Power Rangers Hyperforce session review. I've actually got to get right back to work on the next one, which is one I think that people will be anticipating just a little bit more than this one. All I can really say at this point is a legend even bigger than Santa Claus was set to join the Hyperforce Rangers this time around. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Make sure to like the video by clicking the like button right down below. In the comments below, let me know what you thought about this pretty zany but also very deep and heavy Hyperforce Christmas special, as well as my review of it. And Thumpers, check in. I'm always glad to hear from you guys in the comments. As a matter of fact, I was just gifted another 1-month subscription to Hyper RPG, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to see all my videos and get your notifications set up. Ring that bell so you get notified of whenever I post brand new videos like these Power Rangers Hyperforce session reviews. And if you do want to toss me a little tip jar change, just a little financial support for my videos, not something you have to do, doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be anything, just something I'm offering you the chance to do because some people like to do that. Make sure to head over to digitaltipjar.com/orangerangervid. You can toss me whatever little financial support you'd like into that digital tip jar. I'd be grateful for whatever you can do. And as always, heroes, may the power protect you, and go Hyperforce. So So, the session starts with the time ship still strilling. As a matter of fact, Alpha seems to be just fine, but for some Meanwhile, Vesper and Chloe decide to investigate the things that are the things.
I can tell you what Krampus is all about.
This leads the two of them to start reminiscing about something, about 3016. Though, to be honest with you, that could have been my front yard yesterday morning. Boop. They then see her, as Vesper jumps on Santa's lap and starts spouting that they are ready to help. Squeezy is scared, but Chloe snatches away the platter of cookies and starts handing them out to everybody. Aww. So you can see that for yourself. Eddie tosses, that thing flashed up and I got confused. Then, what the Rangers, Dasher and Dancer and Comet and Blitzen, dag nabbit, I knew naming them off was going to mess me up. Squeezy is thrilled that Santa is finally ready to use the armor, but says she doesn't. The two of them sneak up on the naughties as a team, which is actually a bump of the TV. Somebody touching my spaghetti. Santa and Marv have one more heart-to-heart, not Santa, farts! Marv tries to get some scans of Santa's battleizer, but Santa won't allow this, saying that they have to earn their technology in their own time when they're supposed to have it. After they deliver all the presents, Santa has them back inside for one more round of milk and cookies. After they deliver the presents, Santa has them inside one more time for one more round of I'm just loving the complexity of each of these Rangers thus far. They're so much deeper than the pieces of cardboard we seem to have on Ninja Steel thus far. Okay. Getting pissed off. So you get notified of whenever I post my reviews, videos like this Hyperforce session review, as a matter of fact. That just went absolutely off the rails.